Here's my vintage toy store on eBay and what I have sold. Hello friends, I am Joshua Tatsui. I run an online vintage toy store through eBay, and on this channel I would like to share what I sell and what I collect and all the cool things that come through my store. I have sold everything from stovetops to records to game dice. But from the start, I have always sold primarily vintage toys. I have sold a lot of vintage collectible media, ranging from records to DVDs, very cool DVD collections I've bought from 50s, 40s, 60s, random eras, but collectible and sell well, all the way to first edition, first print Harry Potter sets that have sold for great money and are just super, super cool to see. Here is an X-Men Edition 101. The first appearance of the Phoenix. It is a very iconic and well-known comic. I plan on getting this graded because it adds to the coolness and vibe of my store, but also just the individual story of this as well. I actually bought this from a comic book artist who lived in New York and was doing art in New York for various projects. So he knew his stuff and had a very cool collection that I bought from him. I also sell a bunch of vintage models ranging from the 60s all the way to the 90s and a couple, probably not any, in the 2000s. I have the Revell GT40s up there, all the way to monograms, Lindenbergs, and models from Japan made by Tamiya. A lot of them are mechanized and have engines. I've also sold a lot of 60s Auroras. These happen to be horror Auroras and are professionally painted. Very, very rare, very, very cool. I've also sold tons of late 70s, early 80s original Star Wars toys and action figures. They are some of my favorite collections and stuff that I like to collect myself. I can't keep everything myself, and so that is why I have a eBay vintage toy store to share with you all, as well as a YouTube channel that I am starting to also show you all what I have found and what is super awesome. Now we'll get into the exciting part and see what sold on my vintage toy store this weekend. To start, we have this action figure that sold for $24.95. It is a 2001 Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde action figure made by Mezco Corp. It is actually called a Silent Screamers, whether that's the toy line or something, not sure. Dr. Jekyll is hiding inside. Very cool toy from the early 2000s. Here's a vintage 1995 Mattel Barbie keychain. It sold for $4.84. It is a fashion Barbie. It's got a black little dress. Next, we have a very unique, very rare collector's pin. What's interesting about this one, it is not a Majors League Baseball team. It is not a Minors League Baseball team. This is a Little League, like a middle school team. And so I bought this in an auction unit, and it had a huge pin book of these youth league pins. And depending on the character and the style of it, determines how much it's worth. This one happens to be Tommy Rockets, which is apparently very collectible. It goes for $140. Crazy. Up next, we have the Incredible Hulk hands. These are from 2003. They went for $69.95. They take 4 AA's, so these foam hands can make the iconic Hulk smash. And here we have a He-Man and She-Ra Christmas special. This is a little bit before my time, but when I was very young, watching He-Man was very cool, but it wasn't on very much because I was growing up in the 2000s. But still, He-Man is very collectible. I have a lot of He-Man figures. And next we have the New Mutants. Went for $17.05. It is written by the famous author and writer Chris Claremont, iconic X-Men and Marvel author. Up next we have a super collectible giant set of the Essential X-Men graphic novels. This is the complete run, 1 through 11. Very rare altogether. As you can see, they're released at different times because the art of the book is changed. The numbers change in the later issues. Complete set. Chris Claremont is a name on a lot of these books. Very popular writer. But then all the other names change depending on the set. But a very impressive, cool set. Again, this was bought from a comic book artist, so he knew his stuff, he knew what he liked, he had cool stuff. a very cool lot. And up next, by Vintage Motorsport, we have a Road Racing Specials hardcover big book with a nice dust jacket. It's from 2003. It went for $79.95. It goes through all of the iconic, individual, unique sports cars throughout history. Very cool, very unique book. Great display piece. And here we got an Xbox 360 game made by the Valve. This is the orange box. It went for $19.95. It has Half-Life 2 on it, Team Fortress 2, and one of the greatest games, Portal. Here we have a more unique item that I don't always have in my store, but a collector was moving from Chicago to Mexico for health reasons. He was a veteran and needed warmer weather, and so I bought a lot of his stuff. This happens to be a very nice silver-plated piece made by Los Castillo Taxco. It is a tea set, very rare, went for about $250 and sold immediately because it is a very rare piece. Up next, we have a 1993 set of Thomas the Train wind-ups made by Shining Bright. These went for $90. I have a set of 6 here. We have Thomas, Ben, Percy, 2 birdies, and another Thomas. This next segment of what has sold will be on trains. I have bought multiple collections dealing with N scale, HO scale train sets, and the detail on these trains is incredible. They're so small, but they have like all the details of the actual trains down to the year, and just hundreds and hundreds of trains I've gone through, and there is detail on every single one of these. Starting with the Genesis, it is a premium train line made by Athearn, which is a popular HO and scale producer. This one is an HO scale locomotive. It is the Western Pacific. It is an F3A Phase 2 locomotive, extremely detailed. It's probably hard to see with all the reflections, but very detailed HO scale, which is the bigger scale locomotive. So it has an engine inside of it. It has some heft. It is kind of heavy. Very, very intricate, very, very detailed. Very fancy boxing as well. Up next, we have another locomotive. This one is made by Concor. It is a older steam engine. It is a Hudson N-scale steam locomotive, and it is the Santa Fe line. N-scale is 1/160th, which is impressive because it's half the size of the HO scale, but it still has amazing detail. You look at these, you can see all the bolts and nuts in them. A lot of them have drivers in them. This one does not. Still very impressive. I am not going to go through all the trains. Here is another Concor steam engine locomotive. It is also N-scale. Up next is another set of locomotives. I have 3 sets here made by Kato. Kato is a very high quality, detail-oriented, expensive Japanese-made brand. Here we have the Western Pacific F3A locomotives A and B. Okay, the A has the nose, the B is more of a regular engine looking car. They both have engines, both a little heavier. Here we have a Southern Pacific set. It is a EMD E8/9. These are Southern Pacifics. They say Southern Pacific line on them. Nice coloring. Here is one with a nice box and set. So these are all sets. They have A and B locomotives. This is an F3 Denver and Rio Grande set. All very detailed, all very impressive locomotives. Up next, we have a pair of Trainmasters made by Atlas, a very popular HO and N scale brand. These are the Southern Pacific line. And next up is a bunch of sets of lifelike N scale locomotives. So here we have a set of San Francisco train line, set of Santa Fe train lines, a Milwaukee set, which actually the collector I bought from had a lot of Milwaukee sets. Very cool collector. So a lot of these are actually in like new condition because he had such a big collection that he barely used most of them. It's kind of insane. And then a small Southern Pacific SW8 locomotive. Micro train lines, this is probably the company I've come across the most, not the most expensive. These are just stock cars. This is a sealed, brand new set. Very cool. Here, this is probably a tier above the Kato brand. These are very ornate overland train models. This is an N-scale caboose. This one is still unpainted. Very detailed. You can see all the rivets. It would be painted when it is used for an actual model set, but it's a brass set. The metal brass is very collectible, very desirable, and it's unused. And lastly, we have these N-scale truck trailers. And the purpose of these is when you do buy the train sets and you build the HO scale and N scale train sets, what you need is a lifelike model set of like a little city or a village. And you need the detail in all the other pieces as well, like truck trailers. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please click here for more. Also, like and subscribe.